Hi everyone, it's DJ Philip Tan, and this is Why DJ. It's a series of videos where I try to answer questions people have asked me about DJing, about why people do certain things. I got a question from Aran asking me who are my favorite DJs and why do I like them. Now, at first I thought this was too big of a question. I've actually been asked to try to keep these videos shorter, and I just like so many DJs that it's going to be hard to be able to fit it within 5 or 10 minutes. I want to recommend all of them to you. However, the why part of it is actually a little bit easier because there are basically five kinds of DJ activity that I really admire, and all of my favorite DJs check multiple boxes. So let me talk about that first. There are the crate diggers. These are the people who find music that not a lot of people have heard. Either they're rare records or forgotten records or new music that from up and coming artists. And then they make a huge effort to try to share that, to highlight this music, to tell you the history of this music and where it came from, and almost point you in the direction of where you could find this music as well. And these are the artists that you should be listening to. There are the system engineers. These are the people who either they build sound systems or they incorporate new technology and they try things out and they legitimize new technical practices in DJing, and try to sort of show that there is a place for new different ways of doing things technologically. DJing is actually a pretty conservative art. A lot of people don't like to change their ways. And as a result of that, I really admire the people who are willing to push that boundary forward and challenge the established way of setting up your equipment or the sound system. There are the stage performers. These are the people where you want the spotlight on them. These are folks who either have like great turntable skills, incredible stage presence, a real musical way of employing those skills, so it doesn't just look good, but it also sounds good. These aren't just like turntablists. These also include people who use CDs or controllers, and play a large variety of music, electronic music or house or hip hop. I'll give you some examples of those in the coming weeks. There are the selectors. These are people who, having a collection of music, are somehow able to pick just the right record for the audience in front of them at that particular moment. And they're able to do it consistently because they know their music so well, but they also know their audience so well, and they have that sensitivity. They're almost like these social antennas to be able to answer the question, this is what I think the crowd needs right now, and they nail it. That's an art all by itself. So I will talk about a few of those. And finally, there are the cultivators, the scene builders, people who put in a lot of effort to work with other DJs and to try to build an audience around a sort of different party experience. All the folks that I am thinking of are people who are DJs themselves. They're in fact usually the headliners or the biggest draw, and they're sort of using that influence in a way to boost other DJs, and that I think is extremely admirable. Not included in my list are people who either produce or remix music, either in a studio or at home. That's not to say that I don't admire them. I certainly do. But I admire them as producers or remixers. There are a lot of good producers out there who are not DJs, for instance, and I admire them. There are a lot of DJs where what they do on the DJ side of things isn't that interesting to me, but the music that they make is really interesting to me. But I'm not including that on the list because that will be my favorite producers list instead. So let's just talk about the first category, which are the crate diggers. Again, these are the people who go out of their way to find music that you may not have heard before and introduce it to a wider audience, and more importantly, show you how you can find out more about this music, how you can listen to this music on your own. They are not keepers of secrets. They're the opposite. They're there to find those secrets and then unveil them to the rest of the world. So I have two DJs that I'd like to highlight in this category. One is Questlove, who's actually quite well known. He's the lead of the band The Roots, which plays the music on Jimmy Fallon's night show. And but he's also a DJ, and he does live events. Ever since lockdown started, I've been watching a lot of his YouTube live streams. I think he also streams on Twitch and Instagram, where he just does a DJ set. And one thing that you notice while he's DJing is that he's talking almost all the time. You get to hear the music. He lets the music breathe, but then he explains to you what you're listening to. And here's this version, of Michael Jackson demo, for instance, that you probably have never heard because Questlove has used his contacts in the music industry and in the Philadelphia scene in particular to be able to get recordings from masters that were never released to the public, for instance. So he uses that access. In a way, it sort of makes him unique because very few other people can get those recordings. But then he plays them for people, and he tells you exactly where he got it from, or at least he tells you where this recording was originally made, so that there's that context. And then he'll mix it in with the album versions or the radio versions that you might be more familiar with. And then he'll play like cover versions from other artists that of that same song, for instance, or that were clearly inspired from that first song. And he creates this story that helps you appreciate all of that music, starting with his exclusive access to music that almost no one else can get, and then building up this story. So Questlove is the first one I want to highlight. Across the pond, David Rodigan. Rodigan is a DJ in the UK, but he largely plays Jamaican music. He plays dancehall, reggae, rocksteady. And through him, I have learned so much more, not just about the music and the artist, but also the culture of Jamaican music. Now, it's a little bit odd for me to highlight a white UK DJ when it comes to Jamaican music, because there are sound system folks, DJs and selectors in Jamaica who have just as deep a knowledge of or more of the music of Jamaica, but very few of them try to be ambassadors of that music to the world. A lot of them are really more about their sound crew or their artist career, and they're trying to draw more fans just to themselves. Whereas in David Rodigan's situation, on his radio shows, on his interviews, he's always very much pointing at the artist that made the music and not at himself. People do respect him. He is a star in his own right. People do come out to see his DJ shows and enjoy the heck out of it. He's earned certainly a lot of respect from all over the world, and particularly in Jamaica, for introducing the world, large chunks of the English-speaking world to music from one Caribbean island. But he also gives you that context in the same way that Questlove does. This is who made this music. This is a studio that they recorded in. This was what was going on in Jamaica at the time when this music was recorded. Things that people outside of Jamaica need to know, and people inside Jamaica already understand and don't need that explained to them. And so, as an ambassador of music, I think it's important that he's played that role, certainly in my education and appreciation of Jamaican music, that helps me then discover the Jamaican DJs and their selectors and their sound systems, and better appreciate them now that he's already pointed the way. But I would never have found them in the first place if it wasn't for Rodigan's introduction. So those are the crate diggers. I'll go into the other categories: the engineers, the performers, the selectors, and the cultivators, the community builders, in a future video. Hope this was useful.